My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm Vice President at Van Scoyoc Associates.
Evan Lydiard, worked for the National Association of Realtors.
I'm Kathleen Black. I spent 17 years as a congressional staffer.
I'm Lauren Basil, and I work now at the Alpine Group, a government relations consulting firm.
I'm Alex Reed. I'm a tax attorney here at Morgan Lewis.
I was the top economic policy staffer for 3 senators. First, Evan Bayh of Indiana, and then I went to work for John Kerry on the Finance Committee when he got on the Finance Committee, and then I worked for Senator Chuck Schumer from New York for 7 years when he was on the Finance Committee.
I spent 20 years working for Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah.
I worked for 6 different members of the House and Senate. I did 2 round trips between the House and Senate.
I worked for Senator John Kerry from Massachusetts, interim Senator Mo Cowan from Massachusetts, and before that I worked for Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington State.
I worked for the Joint Committee on Tax, which is a nonpartisan committee of tax attorneys and economists.
No, it's hugely important. In fact, it's really, really important for people from the states and the districts to call or come in or email, whether it's in DC or calling somebody up and building a relationship by phone. It's hugely important.
I think people don't appreciate sometimes that members of Congress and certainly their staff can't be expert on every issue, and it helps personalize an issue for the staff, and it also helps bring an issue more into the consciousness of a member.
Folks coming from back home are telling them what's really happening in the home state and how they really feel, and it's very valuable. And of course the member and the staff want to make a good impression and to let people know they're welcome and open and listening to them as well. But it's a two-way street, and members and staff very much rely on that information.
Members of Congress are always looking for a way to remain relevant to the people at home. And while social media and electronic communication has its point, a stream of data bits just isn't the same thing as a look in the eye and a handshake from a voting constituent.
The reason they're there is to be helpful to the people from their district. So if you are one of those people, you're right in the sweet spot.
Well, you know what they say about assuming.
I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I will say that there are times where there were bad things that happened to various constituency groups that had they made the one phone call or scheduled the one meeting or made the one contact ahead of time, they could have avoided the bad thing happening to them.
The best time to actually talk to staff and inform staff is when your issue isn't on the top burner, because it gives staff time to digest, it gives staff time to formulate other questions and follow-ups.
Not showing up and not going to the Hill is viewed as speaking out. So staff really do care about, has anyone come to weigh in on this issue? Does anyone care about this issue? And if they hear silence, then they assume that means that nobody cares about the issue.
If it is a concern, you should make it known right away. Even if you don't think it's coming up till next year, there's nothing to say you shouldn't make it known now. It's better to warn and forewarn than it is to let it go and say, oh, I should have weighed in on that when I had time, when I had a chance.
When proposals really are hot and moving, a lot of times positions are already formulated, and so getting in too late can be too dangerous.
If you can just come in, not be intimidated by the trappings of the office, but come in prepared to tell a compelling story about the issue and how it affects you, that's what they want to hear, because compelling stories are what sells in Washington. And if they remember you and they remember your story, they're more likely to be able to help you.
Just be who you are. Don't worry about that you have to follow this talking point exactly. I mean, tell a story from your state or from your district and just be who you are. And so it doesn't appear like it's a canned message.
Go in and ask them for something. Don't just go in and complain. I think it's good. Even if what is being proposed or is really hideous, don't just complain about it.
But what you really want to do is you really want to drive your point home about your issue in the clearest, most concise way possible.
One mistake people make is not to make it clear why they're there and what they're for or against. You should always have an ask. There should be a bottom line. This is what I want your boss to do. This is what I want your boss not to do. And make sure it's clear.
I think it's a good idea to develop a relationship with one of the staff members when you meet in person. Try to get their card, try to help them remember who you are.
But I would say probably the most important thing is to not have your meeting with the staffer be the only time you ever contact them. Use that meeting to build a relationship and follow up with them 2 or 3 months later. And don't have it be where you just come once and then disappear and you never contact them again.
Don't make it a one-time thing. It takes more than one contact to build a relationship. Sometimes, especially if the staffer has been there for a while, he or she will start recognizing names and faces if they've come in every year. But don't make it pester yourself by calling every day or every week either. But there's nothing wrong with email. There's nothing wrong with telephoning and keeping up to speed. Help keeping the staffer informed of what's going on. And a follow-up conversation, a follow-up email can be a great thing. Just don't overwhelm them.
One meeting, on a day when members of Congress will typically be scheduled at least every half hour, and there's a lot of times in the year when you get a 15-minute window. And with a 15-minute window, the congressman or representative or senator is, they could have 20 meetings that day. And as important as it is to do them, they're certainly not enough. You need to be able to, year after year coming back helps reinforce, but being able to extend I know how busy you are here, the next time you're in the district, come see me, is really useful too.
Also think proactively. When members of Congress are at home, think about events that you have 2, 3, 4 months hence. Can you invite a member? Can you invite the staff to come and see the work that you're doing on the ground?
The system is really designed for in-person meetings. That's sort of how it was done when our founders, there were no telephones, there was no email, there was no internet. You could write a letter, but going to Washington to meet with your member of Congress was how you were supposed to make your opinions heard. And so I think it's important for people to take advantage of that and kind of really exercise their rights as Americans to do that.